Hello, Amar and Pearl. How are you both doing this evening?
Yeah, really good. How are you, Christopher?
So this is Amar and Pearl. They've known each other for about 8 years. They're good friends who have decided to design a game together. They're, as I mentioned just a second ago, based out of London, and their game is Cake of Doom. It is coming to Kickstarter crowdfunding in early March of this year, 2023. So, what do you want to say about your game?
Well, it really is our dream, is the first thing I would say about it. It's been a sort of 2 years journey, so it's been a long way coming, and we're so excited about our game. But what Kick of Doom is a game where you're an alien and you're taking over the world by giving people cakes to bribe them and win them over. And during the game, you sabotage, you give bribes, and ultimately somebody takes over the world and rules Earth.
Sounds about right. Oh, so,
Really logical.
what type of cakes would maybe an American audience be surprised by? Are there cakes in like specific types of cakes?
I'm so
Yeah,
glad you asked.
Okay.
Go for it.
there's a combination. So we have some of the well, what we have is a slight twist on some of the cakes you would expect to see. So there are cakes like a galaxy cake. We took things like red velvet and tried to make them much more alien and spacey. So a lot of our cakes kind of take a cake that you would expect to see and put a twist on it. We also have cakes that are that score slightly higher in certain regions. Those cakes are cakes that we know and through our research have found that people in those regions are quite fond of. So you mentioned America, and we have apple pie, big favorite in America, and also Nanny Omo bars, which we know are popular in Canada. So a few treats like that, and then of course we've gone. It's a worldwide game, so we've got cakes from all around the world, um, and hopefully many that surprise you and make you look at the cards and think, oh, that's interesting. I'll have to try that and look that up. So yeah, really hope to bring a variety of cakes and desserts to everyone. I'll admit things got a bit more challenging when we were thinking about the North Pole and the South Pole, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, I mean,
Favorite.
did you go with wildlife and what they would be interested in, or did you go with what the research scientists would be interested in at the South Pole? Like, I didn't know that there would be South Pole stuff there. What?
There's actually one that I think is inspired, you might say, by animals. So it's a frozen fruits cake. So imagine a fruits frozen ice in shape of a cake, and it's something that they feed to animals in zoos, for example. I know they do it to pandas, because I've seen it where I'm from in Hong Kong. But we also have foods that are hopefully more appealing to human, depending on your tendencies. There is a 106-year-old fruit cake, which is a genuine fruit cake that they discovered at the poles that were left, and apparently edible. I wouldn't try it, but each to their own.
Yeah. So I mean, the aliens in this game. I've seen some of your pictures. Are they necessarily like bipedal, like human type of aliens, or?
Absolutely not. We were,
Yeah.
I think we were inspired. Well, we took inspiration from aliens all over popular culture. So I'm thinking of Chewbacca. I'm thinking about E.T. I'm thinking about Paul from the movie with Simon Pegg.
Yep.
Probably one of my favorite aliens. But we took all of these concepts and ideas, um, some inspiration from say Monsters Inc. and tried to reimagine aliens that would um, not embellish, but sort of represent the personalities that we were thinking about. And each alien has its own alien ability, which introduces some asymmetry to the game. So we were trying to think about that alien ability imagine what would an alien that had this ability look like. So, for example, one of the aliens is well, they're called Dit and Toe when you put them together, Ditto, and that alien's ability is to replicate something that other players can do, and so they're little tools that kind of bobble along side by side, and they copy other players, and they do the same thing. So, yeah, we've tried to imagine aliens with their abilities in mind.
So this game has a little bit of take that. I'm gathering. Uh, yes, yeah,
For sure.
yeah, yeah.
More than a bit.
Well, I saw. I think Pearl that one of your favorite games is Brass. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So how do you go from a game like Brass to this is more of a lighter lighthearted game? Why did you want to design something like this that has more of direct player interaction and things like that that's on the lighter side versus something like Brass?
Yeah, it's a fair question. And to start with, I will say that I do enjoy a range of games. I also play D&D, and I'll play Exploding Kittens, so everything is fun in its own way with the right audience for me. Um, but I think when I first started playing board games, I was more into things like Brass, that sort of medium heavier game. And then one time I came across a game on Kickstarter called Bytes. It's by Board Game Tables, but it's a light
Mhm.
game as well. But I just found the concept so elegant. I hadn't seen anything like it, and we move ants around on a picnic trail, and how much each you pick up things on the way, and how much they're worth depends on when the ants arrive at the end, basically. But it was simple, and yet it was really fun. I was able to whip it out when I host games that I started to warm up, and or for friends who didn't enjoy as much. And I was like, oh, you know what? It's really well designed. So just because something is lighter doesn't mean that I won't like it or that it's not worth playing, if you see what I mean. Um, so I guess that kind of opened me up a bit more onto the idea of actually, yeah, light games are awesome too. Um, and I think what appealed to us about the idea of a light game is that it's not necessarily targeted at people who are already deep in the hobby.
Mm.
It's been
Mhm.
great showing it to sort of friends and family, like colleagues, people who, when you say games to, will say, "Oh, like Monopoly," right? And actually, it's really nice bringing people into the hobby and showing them other games.
Yeah. How about you, Mar? What type of games do you like to play, and how did that inform uh, the game design?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a complete variety. I suppose I'm more on the party game side, perhaps, than Pearl is. I'd love to break out code names with a few people, or Scrawl, or all sorts of silly games. I do also enjoy perhaps a mid-level game as well. What I really like is the concept that if you're playing with your friends for an afternoon or an evening, it's quite likely that you're going to start with a simple game, kind of ease yourself into it before playing
Mm.
Seven Wonders or something like that. And I thought it was really nice. I thought it would be really nice to create a game that you can share with both audiences. Even people who like a mid strategy game will play a lighter game just to warm up. But yeah, as Pearl says, we could take this game and share it with friends and family as much as people who are already in the gaming community. Um, so yeah, that's definitely where lightweight came from. The kind of silliness
Hmm.
of the theme, the fun of the theme. It's not trying to take itself too seriously. So yeah, that's and we've also tried to introduce a few different elements that you might bring a couple of different types of games together. So yeah, it's been a really fun process.
Yeah. What was the most difficult thing as you were working through the design together? What did you each find difficult as you designed it?
I think one of the things I learned was how to let go of bits that
Mm.
I just thought was great, or I just grew attached to, right? Because it's sort of your baby. So one thing that we eventually figured is at the start we had cakes and we had toppings. So you might have chocolate cake that you can add strawberries on top of. And there were lots of good feedback related to it. People enjoyed comboing stuff and make them feel sort of smart. or like if achieved something special. But actually, once we tried it one without, we realized it was adding a lot of complexity that wasn't worth the occasional fun point that it did bring. But it took, I would say, months and months because we kept thinking, oh, people say we try without. No, 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 we love toppings. Toppings are great. You need to have toppings. Um, so yeah, it was learning to try things out before you decide that it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as a first-time designer, the biggest thing you face is, taking your precious creation and putting it out there and taking advantage of other people's feedback. Like at first, it's definitely a bit daunting. You don't know what they're going to say. You want people to like it, but in truth, whatever feedback they give you, positive or development feedback, it's all very valuable. And yeah, I think as a first step, that's the thing to get over. But once you've got over it, it becomes so much easier and the process runs smoother and you don't feel bad. Throughout this, we've had loads of good ideas that just haven't made it to the game because they don't fit that nicely. They don't add as much as that's how we start thinking about it. Does this add more value than the increased complexity or the mental load? And you have to be very rigorous in your application of that thinking and that methodology. But yeah, we kind of evolved into that or grew into it, and now it's really fun. You have a new idea, you evaluate it, try it out a few times, and make a decision.
Yeah. So how did you've kind of touched this already? How did the community affect the development of the game? It sounds like some of that was probably during lockdown too. Did you do like Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia or something else? Um, and what types of inputs did you ask for from people as you were developing the game?
Yeah, communities, I think a big bit, and I'm sure you've heard this time and time over and you're sick of hearing it, but the community to support designers and publishers or wannabe publishers, I think is truly amazing on tabletop games. When we first started playtesting, I think the first few we did that are with not ourselves were sort of friends and family because it felt less scary, you know?
Yeah.
And then we eventually started using these online communities, and they were really blooming at this time during the lockdowns. So Discord servers, we put it on Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia, and now Screen Top, and it was a really good platform to get, I think, a bit more critical or a bit feedback, or at least from people who are a bit more tuned to thinking about the design. And it was useful to get both, I guess, friends and family as well as other designers. But while we're talking about community, another thing I really wanted to shout out about was other designers and publishers who are so selfless in giving their time and support and tips. I joined this program run by volunteers called Tabletop Mentorship Program. And I was paired twice, once with a fellow designer, Raven Kinsey, who's US based, and another time with Jack Pope, who's UK based publisher. And both times they've just been so helpful. I'm still in touch with them. I actually saw Jack a couple of months ago at a board games event. I think it's just connections like that really helped keep going and really helped shape what a game is. What would you say, Amar, about community?
I don't know if there's much to add. I mean, you've really hit the nail on the head.
Sorry.
I think. No, no, no. I think everyone is fantastic in giving you feedback, but what I really appreciate is that you can see when people give you feedback, doing it from a really good place. It's even some of the feedback you need to hear, right? Talked about elements of the game that were really good. There were elements to the game that were not good at all, and what you really need is someone to tell you got to take this out, and we definitely did. But having that real honest feedback that comes from a really good place that's saying we want to help you, and that's why we're saying this. It really means a lot, and also feeling like you're doing this. We're obviously lucky, right? Pearl and I are making this game together, but to feel like you're doing this with other publishers who are going to have the same questions as you, designers who are at the same process as you, or sometimes a step ahead, sometimes a step behind. And being able to have those conversations and learn from each other is really valuable. And yeah, we've definitely appreciated all of the influences we've had in making this happen.
Yeah.
In
So,
fact,
oh,
I
go
would.
ahead.
It's. I was gonna say, community is probably how you can say how we found out the artist who's been doing all these wonderful illustrations and drawings and ideas. We met them through I think a fellow publisher that from a Discord community, and then events, and when we needed someone to step in and do more art, yeah, you already know someone, so it's great.
Okay. What else? Because it's Scott Engel, is that right? Or I'm sorry, what was it?
Rob,
Rob Engel.
Walt Engel. Okay, sorry, I didn't have it right in front of me. I just anyway. What else have they worked on?
So they're also part of SDR game Stop, Drop, and Roll.
Oh yeah.
Most
Okay.
recently Earth
Yeah.
Rising, but Pugs and Mugs. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. When you're playing with friends and family versus playing with somebody who's designed a game or working on designing a game, do you look for different things, or what types of questions do you ask somebody who's just like, oh, this is neat? Because sometimes friends and family are very much like, oh, this is wonderful. I'm so glad you designed the thing. I mean, I remember
definitely.
talking to one designer, and when her mom just got so excited, didn't really know what she was doing, but was very excited that she was doing the thing, right? So do you
Mm.
have a different rubric when you're interacting with those people, or how does that go for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think with friends and family, it's much more observational.
Hmm.
So if I give you an example, Pearl, we were playing with some of friends and relatives, and they brought a book. Early on, there was a lot more numbers in the game, and they brought a little book to sit there and jot down the numbers. And when you'd ask for feedback, everyone would say, "Yeah, really good game. Really enjoyed it." We'd go back and reflect on small things like that to say, well, we want to create a game where you have to book to jot down numbers to really enjoy it. And we thought, no, we don't. So we took that out. But it's very unlikely that someone will out and out say it to you when they want to be supportive, when they're friends and family. So I think with that audience, it's much more about observing. It's much more about thinking. How did they feel in that moment? Um, is this the type of game that they would enjoy? Obviously, you do ask questions, but a lot of it is looking at their expression and how they feel when you're explaining the rules. People picking up quickly. Designers, of course, they're making games every single day. You can ask much more detailed feedback about specific elements of the game, and typically we'd say that up front. We've changed this thing. We're trying this new thing. Can we get a bit of feedback on this specifically? And those designers are very good at identifying specific aspects of the game and giving you feedback. I think what's great in those conversations is someone might give you some feedback and you can ask, or I feel much more confident asking, well, you talk about feeling good, or you didn't quite understand this. Can you give me a specific example of a moment in the game? And designers will be able to do that because they'd have thought critically, not in a bad way, but they'd have thought thoroughly about your game as they're playing it. And that's certainly been my approach to the two different audiences.
Yeah. So what types of feelings are you hoping for people to experience as they play this type of game? Because especially like kids, right? Kids, when they play a game where there's a little bit of take that. Um, how are you handling those feelings as you approach the design of Cakes of Doom?
Interesting you brought up kids because if you definitely notice a slight behavior shift. Although I genuinely say every time we have played with younger children, it's almost been better at bringing out the emotions we're aiming for. There are feelings of revenge in friendly ways. You get sort of
Mm.
frenemies and shifting alliances, right? People start doing sort of almost irrational things that are not necessarily good for them in the game, but I just want to, right? You have satisfaction with payback and you have sense of loss and all these all these fun emotions when in a nice game context. And I guess partly it's because kids show it more on their faces typically. But what we also see is sometimes, especially in families, people almost adjusting that, like the parents, for example, might adjust their behaviors a little bit, or older sibling and younger sibling dynamics. Sometimes it's very rivalry-like, and it's in a way that doesn't hurt people's feelings. Sometimes it's maybe the older sibling's a bit older and the other one's a bit younger, and you get they almost go nudge nudge wink wink and let them win or let them take a thing, and I really enjoy watching groups of mixed ages play it. Actually, what do you think, Amar?
I think that's absolutely right. I think the emotions I'd hope to evoke are a bit of a roller coaster. You know, the elation when you bribe a region, the frustration when someone steals it from you, or on the other side, the satisfaction of having taken a region off someone, the look on someone's face when you play that cake monster, or it's all about I guess you're playing your game in a way that helps you succeed whilst also in some way um, preventing others, right? And people make alliances. There's lots of options for different dynamics in the game. People make alliances and then ruthlessly go back on those alliances to the frustration of other players, and it's brilliant to watch. I think some of my funnest moments are those kind of parent-children interactions that Pearl refers to. We've had the pleasure of playing the game at a few different conferences, UKGE notably, and it's really fun. You get a family sit down and play with you, and I never know, right? Are these parents looking at their kids and thinking, right, I'll play a game in a way that helps them win, and we'll have a good day, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have parents sit down and ruthlessly eliminate their children. In some cases, combine to just obliterate their own kids, win the game. And I remember asking one dad, that was a surprising move. Why did you do that? And he's like, well, they got to learn. They got to learn, and they just got up and walked away. And it was just so funny. I really enjoy that. I think, yeah, when you see a group who have played the game, clearly there's only one winner, but if they all go away, feeling happy and thinking about some of those memorable moments, that's really what we're aiming for.
You know that saying, people might not remember what you told them, but they remember how you made them feel. That's what we're looking for.
Cool. So yeah, just walk it. We've kind of danced around, but just walk us through the game in about a minute to half, if you can, so that people know how what all these terms that you've mentioned mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So every player is an alien. You want to take over the world and win, and you do that by winning over two parts of the world, two regions, and the democratic order of mankind, or the Doom. And on your turn, you'll do some actions, things like you can play a card to steal from someone else, you can pick up a discard, and then the main event is a bribe. And a bribe is how you win over a region, or the Doom. That's the main part of the game. So you pick a target. Let's say I want to target the Far East, right, in Asia, and I'll have to pay some kick cards. So I'll establish my bribe. I'll put down some cards, and then we will represent value, and I'll need a certain amount for the Far East. Now my bribe is set. Everyone else might sabotage me, so they can play sabotage cards. They can discuss this. This is where the sort of alliances and so on come in. If it knocks me down to less than I need, I don't get it. Otherwise, I've got it. I now rule the Far East. And then you draw cards, and the next person goes. So sort of basic flow of the game. And you get some nice decision points around sort of what type of cards you might choose to draw, so the different decks. You get to make decisions around whether you want this region or see with someone else. You get to decide whether to save up your sabotagers or to use on this one. So this sort of things that people tend to be thinking about playing the game.
Yeah.
Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I suppose you've described it perfectly. I think the real interaction comes when you are thinking about preventing or stopping a bribe, working with others to stop a bribe, or stealing a region off someone else. You'll have that kind of two-player interaction for sure, where you're trying to one person steal a region, the other defend it. And then what we also have is I mentioned drawing cards at the end of every round. We have an escalating draw system. So every round you'll be drawing more and more cards. So you start with 8 in your hand, and you'll be playing a few cards, and you draw 1 on round 1, 2 on round 2. And what that's meant to do is really quicken the pace of the game. Towards the end of the game, it's likely that you're drawing 5, 6, even 7 rounds, and so you're really encouraged to interact, play cards, to do something that will have a meaningful impact on the game. Because especially towards the end, when people are getting closer and closer to winning, and that tension is building, you're kind of drawing cards, trying to your last ditch attempts at ruling the earth for yourself, and we really like the way it builds the tension at the end. And typically you've got 1, 2, maybe 3 people vying for that win, but clearly there's only one winner, and the dynamics you see there are really good. I mean, for me certainly, I'm on the edge of my seat looking at 2 or 3 people go for that final move.
Yeah.
Say the escalating draw.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna yeah, escalating draw that you mentioned is I think one of the best things we add, because you mentioned take that as an important element of the game, and one of the common issues you have is that it sort of becomes a grind and it's never ending, and you're not going to win, you're just waiting for someone to. But doing that escalation and instead of having people to do things means we were, I think, quite good at stopping that problem. So the game, almost 99% of the games end within 5 to 7 rounds, which keeps it nice and short and keeps the energy and the flow nice. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, that's kind of where I was going. Is how long do those rounds typically take?
It depends a lot. So what we usually say, this game is 15 to 30 minutes play time, which is fine when you exclude teach, obviously. But I think what we've seen is it varies a lot by the groups. So I've seen groups actually end up taking, say, an hour for a game for a 6-player group, because there was so much banter going on. And they were enjoying it so much. And actually, at the end of it, you're like, oh, wow, that's actually quite a long game, guys. Sorry, it's longer than we thought. And they were, oh, no, like, was that an hour? That was awesome. So it is short game, but it depending on how much talking your group likes to do, it could be longer, and hopefully in a more enjoyable way.
Yeah. So what would you do differently now that you have all the experience and you're basically ready to go? I am assuming you have a production facility picked out and all that, since you're going to be in March. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So are you producing it in England or Europe, or are you going to China, or where are you making the game?
It's almost definitely within the UK,
Okay.
because of number of copies we're anticipating, and also it cuts off a lot of the uncertainty with transport costs and time. Plus, it's nice to actually support sort of other small board game businesses, if you will. Yeah.
Oh, so you do have printing capabilities in the UK.
Yes.
That's cool.
And we were delighted. I mean, I know we were making this decision around at the time that I remember the Suez Canal being blocked up, and I'm sure many people remember that, and we were kind of stroking our chins thinking, wow, yeah, okay, shipping routes interesting, transport interesting, and just delighted to find producers in the UK who we thought, yeah, actually, we could do this much closer, and that would be really nice. And our prototypes, if you get the chance to play them at some of the board game cafes or the cons that we go to, prototypes are made by the same people. Oh, yeah, there we go. Are made by the manufacturers that we're planning to go with for the main game, or for the Kickstarter game. So we've tried them a couple of times already. We're confident on manufacturing quality. We're confident on shipping times. So yeah, as you say, everything is falling in place for March, and it's exciting. A bit really the closer you get to the date, there's a bit of anticipation and whatever. But yeah, it's falling in place.
Yeah. So with all that, whether game design or production or anything, have you learned something that you would do completely differently next time if you do this again?
If it's completely differently, I think a lot of the things I would do differently would be around the game design stage of it. I think we could have been crazy or make bigger steps in the way we try changes out, which I think we did towards the end. Um, and yeah, I think that's just learning as a first time designers, really. Amar, what would you do differently?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been thinking about it. It's hard to say what I'd do differently. I think having now been through the process, there's things that I would do much more confidently. I remember turning up to the first con where we really had a stall and exhibited was UKG last summer, and certainly for the first 10 minutes, the first half an hour, the first hour, a bit of shyness about like, oh my god, I'm gonna ask people to play my game, and they're gonna try it out in real life, and what will they think? To be honest, we've done hours of playtesting at that point, but to have someone right there in front of you who's never seen the game before, who's just trying it out, definitely a bit of nervousness. But I think the community is so good that people are, people are there to have a good time, and luckily we have a game where you can have a lot of fun. So, after an hour, I was really getting into it. We embraced some silly costumes. Pearl had a great alien costume that amused people, baffled people, all sorts. And we took turns trying that, and yeah, just seeing people kind of laugh and smile, and just interacting with them. That no game is for everyone. So you'd have a chat with a few people, and they're saying, "Oh, but we're looking for a two-player, or something else," and that, yeah, that's cool. It's nice just to chat and know what kind of games people are into. So I think I would approach not just conferences, but sorts of events probably with a bit more confidence, just to go in and say, yeah, I'd love to talk to you, and get to meet people and know people. And if you happen to enjoy Cake of Doom, that's wonderful. And if you don't, it's still lovely to meet you. So I think, yeah, I think that's probably the thing that I've learned most, and would love to do again.
Really scary, I think, like promoting yourself because it's your game. You feel like you're talking yourself up, and it's not something that comes naturally to everyone. And I just want to share this because I found it so helpful. It's advice from another designer, and they said, no, just don't think of it as you're trying to sell something. Think of it as you're trying to match up with the gamers who will love your game. And not everyone will, but some do. So it's a mutual benefit thing. You're not trying to scam them or something. You're not being a telemarketer. So yeah, it's you're finding people who love your game as much as you do.
Yeah. So will the game be available anywhere besides the UK then, or just you're just doing UK fulfillment?
It will be worldwide. There
Okay.
may be one or two geographical exceptions, but yeah, generally we'll go everywhere. And we'll try to make shipping costs as transparent as possible as well, because I know it can be expensive and time intensive sometimes to get to further corners.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I am not shipping on that scale, but I have probably a couple hundred I have to just get to Canada, and because I'm not shipping at scale, it's expensive. Everything's expensive shipping anymore. So good luck on that.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
but as I understand it, even going from the UK to France can be a hassle sometimes, right? Um,
Yeah, I think especially there's still a little bit of trickle on of the Brexit effect, if you will,
yeah.
with that cost, if not confusion. But I think the way we thought about it was, so we had a discussion about this as to whether we want to restrict the parts of the world or not. And I think our thinking was, yeah, that if only one person orders from Australia, that will cost a fortune. But what we'll do is make that shipping cost clear up front to people. And actually, if someone, we want to give people that choice. If they want to choose to do that because they love the idea, they love the game that much, then why wouldn't we give them the option?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it goes back to kind of
Yeah.
our aims in this. The thing that we really, when we started this, what we really wanted to do was to have a game on people's shelves. To be able to say, yeah, we did something, it was super fun, and now there are people in the world out there that enjoy the game. When we went back and thought about that, it felt like, why limit it? If there's someone out there who's gonna get some benefit, get a few laughs, enjoy the game, then we want to get it to them.
Yeah. So I guess related to that, are you going to do like retailer pledge level when you go to your crowdfunding?
So the plan is to have tiers that will offer multiple copies at a obviously per unit discount. But what we're not planning to do is make it so that you can only do it if you're a business or if you have a brick and mortar. Anybody can choose to sort of buy multiple copies of the game, but that it's obviously intended more for retailers. So the current plan is to have options for 3 and 5 copies.
Gotcha. Okay. So two really silly questions. Going away from logistics. Would if Invader Zim, are you familiar with Invader Zim? Do you know who Invader Zim is? No? Oh, okay. It's okay. He is. You'll have to look him up later on. He is, I think, from maybe early part of this century, maybe 90. I don't know. He was kind of an insane, terrible invader who came to Earth on Nickelodeon. He didn't really do his job right. So he's a little green guy. Uh, yeah, we'll go with that. He's a little green alien. What kind of cake would you be offering to him?
My favorite non Earth cake in the game, which is just the starry fruit.
Okay.
Because I think I'd love to show him something with a bit of stars where he alien it is from, as well as a little bit of Earth. Fruit cakes. Fruit cakes are a long tradition on this planet. What would you give him?
Yeah. What would you give him, Amar?
Well, I guess he wouldn't know much about cake, so I'd be tempted to try and see how he'd get on with the 106-year-old fruitcake. I mean, just for my own personal amusement more than anything else, just see how well it goes down.
You sound like his next door neighbor that's always trying to thwart him. So that's an appropriate response. Okay, so if you could design, I mean, you already kind of have, but your next game, if the two of you can design anything about anything at all now that you've learned all these lessons, what would you design next?
2 ideas that I sort of put on the back burner because I've just only got so much bandwidth, obviously. But there are 2 that I really liked, and one was about a sort of hidden information deduction game where you're trying to get to know yourself. So other people will know things about you that you don't realize, but you sort of your goal was to try and guess all these traits about yourself in the game. Another idea I really like is related to I guess my cultural background. So I'm from Hong Kong. I grew up there, and I had this idea for a game where in Lunar New Year, traditionally you go or you visit relatives or family friends, and so if the older generation gives red packets to younger generations, there's money inside. So sort of as a child, that was amazing. It was great. And I had an idea about a game where your goal was to maximize your red packets earning by placing yourself strategically on sort of a map. So yeah, those are the 2 ideas I would love to develop into sort of playable games. What would you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was thinking about it just as you were talking. I guess one option could be, where does Cake of Doom go next? And in some of our conversations, we've had some musings about like, is there a 2-player co-op version? Is there an expansion that takes it up to more players? So that could be. It's fun to think about. What's a different twist on our own game? That's something to think about. If it was a completely different game, a whole new realm, it's difficult to say. Would I do another funny, silly, absurd kind of concept and bring that to a game? Possibly. I'm a big fan of. I do like cooperative games.
Hmm.
So something that has the silliness or novelty of Cake of Doom, but in a co-op format that could be fun. I also think about could it be a more serious game? Do I go to kind of the mid level? Maybe something about building water pipelines or energy pipelines or something in different countries across the world. That could be interesting. Resources and energy is a very hot topic right now, and to be able to bring that to life in a game, it could be a lot of fun. So I think those are the two possible directions I'd go.
There are always too many ideas, isn't
Too
it?
many ideas.
Right. Well, I mean, how? Yeah. How did? I don't think we talked about this. How did you narrow in on like this was the one idea we're going to do now that we're getting started?
Came from the idea, to be honest. So we didn't sit down one day and go, let's design a game.
Uh huh.
We're friends. We know each other for years, and we were just chatting. And remember, this is around like sort of first lockdown, so
Yeah.
everybody was going slightly crazy and bored senseless. Um, so we're just chatting. I think we were talking about sort of what world peace and how you could achieve world peace. And this is I bake a lot, and at that point I have to eat all my own baking, so it was sort of like, well, I could just give people cakes until they like me. Well, yeah, but it depends how much they already hate you. Like if you've got to solve a war, that's more cakes than otherwise. um but so, spies would sabotage your cakes by messing with your sugar, and we sort of went, you know what, this could be a game. And we like playing board games. Let's make it up. Why not?
Mm.
How hard can it be? We said. Um, and it sort of went from there.
Yeah, and it's crazy the evolution, right? We're describing to you a silly conversation on WhatsApp that became a A4 piece of paper with a few, you know, rules that we defined ourselves. That turned into some paper prototypes that we, printed on just plain A4 in black and white, cut up with scissors, put them into the little slips, tried that out. That became something a bit more sophisticated. Then we come to getting a real manufacturer to do it, a real artist in, and suddenly it's all coming together. So yeah, it's quite funny when I think back to that. It starts with a WhatsApp conversation and turns into um, a box with cards and a little meeple and a game mat. Like just the evolution is fun to think about.
Yeah. That is really fun. Um, did either of you get better at being a baker during lockdown?
I
Did
I've always baked quite a bit
sure.
as an amateur. I'll be the one who brings a lot of cake to the office. I started doing bread over the lockdowns. I never used to before because it's sort of a different type of thing. But we had nothing but time, or at least I had a lot of time on my hands. So yeah, it sort of expanded my baking repertoire, if you will.
Yeah.
Mm. I think I got worse, if I'm honest.
Did you get worse?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. Like now I make cakes, they almost always crack. Um, there's always something going wrong. Luckily, my wife is very good, and she saves cakes. I destroy them, she saves them. It's very impressive.
I now I have I was watching Taskmaster the other night and they had um, some stupid challenge where they had to make a cake and then sit on it. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yes, I love Taskmaster. I
Okay.
remember that particular. I remember the person who won the task and what she did, but I'm not going to go into it on here.
Yeah. But I don't know. Now I'm just imagining some of those cakes. Uh, Amar, if you were to bake, how that would go. Uh, Thankfully, world peace is not dependent on that, right? So,
Yeah, that is. We should be grateful for that.
yeah. Well, thank you both. Anything else you want to say about your game or anything else you're working on or anything like that before we wrap things up today?
I'll ask you a question, Christopher.
Okay.
What's your favorite cake?
Oh, um, well, you mentioned pies. Uh, the, so that's my first clarifying question. Is that considered cake in the UK? What's the relationship there?
Oh, we've also got frozen fruits. So I mean, we take the definition of cake in the most liberal way you can possibly interpret it. Anything sweet, I will happily accept as an answer.
So if we're strictly talking cake, I'll go with like
Yeah.
a German chocolate cake. As long as it's not dry, it has to be a good cake, right?
Some
But
moist.
yeah. But if I'm allowed to include pies, it's going to be one that my mom makes a strawberry rhubarb pie that is pretty darn good. So yeah,
Sounds
I
lovely.
do you grow rhubarb in the UK? Like, or is that a US thing? I don't know.
It's a if we grow it here, but it's in a lot of things like rhubarb crumble, rhubarb
Yeah.
pies. Actually, I can't stand it, but it's a common thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm one of those crazy
Well,
people who likes coffee and pickles and bitter things. So anyway,
uh, well, we actually have a pledge tier designed just for people who really have a dessert that they love and they could see in the game. Well, we're actually going to have a couple of tiers that allow people to get involved in a bit of the game making process, and if they want to nominate a game or an alien or a sabotage, give us some suggestions and yeah, just have a conversation about it and perhaps come and make something, design something with us. So yeah, that rhubarb and was it rhubarb and strawberry?
Strawberry.
yep, rhubarb and strawberry pie, and it's gonna have the lattice on the top too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That who knows? That could well make it. If you have any inspiration for aliens, you could suggest a spin on your Nickelodeon friend, or indeed some sabotages that you might have seen on Taskmaster. It could be anything, and we could have a great conversation about it.
Well, fantastic. So we'll be looking forward to it's singular cake of doom or cakes of doom. Sorry,
Cake of doom.
cake
Think
of
of
doom.
two.
Cake of doom coming early March to crowdfunding. Um, it's been wonderful to talk to you both. I really enjoy the fun artwork on the game that you've shared so far too. It's quite cute, and best of luck with all of that.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks for having us, and best of luck to you as well on your current campaign.
Oh, thank you. Yep, appreciate. It. Well, you both have a good evening and take care.
Yeah, see ya.
You too. Bye bye.